from like the barrier for SPP implementation or the barrier for eco-labeling implementation. However, of course, that is just a paper, right? The document or the report. Better that we would like to bring it into the debate and discussion with you that how this barrier look like, what kind of the logical or what concept or theoretical point of view behind on that barrier, no? So and then debate and to see that what are a possible measures that can help us to overcoming those barrier. So this is the logic that how or the foundation that why we have a kind of dialogue or dialogue series today. In general, the objective of the dialogue series is to increase your passionate, no, at the either among the policy maker, the expert group, the business, and also practitioner about the SPP and EL to influence the consumption pattern in order to minimize the environmental damage that caused by goods and services. Of course, we would like to inspire you by the practical case from various countries, either in terms of the policy, the regulation, the best practices, and business model, and as well as we would like to expand or improve or having the better understanding, learning about the common barrier in your implementation and maybe find out the possible strategy to successfully overcoming those barriers. Next slide ค่ะ Sarah. And as I said that it's a series meaning that it's not like one time dialogue and then done, because we found so many barrier. If someone already joined, I think on March we already kickstart with the first series, so-called making circular economy work in the product policy, no? So in that series we introduce the underlying barrier to a green and circular economy, such as talking about the externalized cost and also the spill incentive dilemma that will help us to understand how to design the product policy to make circular economy work. And now we are in the second series, so-called walk the talk, meaning that yeah, don't only talk now, but now we have to take the action. And as government uh, lead the transformation, we do see that the government shall take an important role to shape, as I said, that to shape or change the consumption pattern by putting your demand through the market, no? And here we will see from various speakers here that how or what kind of barrier that we attract to, no? And then Sarah, please back to the previous slide,ค่ะ. And then I would invite and pursue your interest to follow like the work, the top three that making how we can make public procurement work, and then other barrier like insufficient domestic manufacturing sector, mismatch with the supplier branding strategy or fast innovation, especially fast innovation, right? You already know that some model like electronic product like computer, mobile phone, they always change the model fastly. So how we can adapt ourselves promptly or respond promptly to that changing, no? And then from the government point of view, unclear mandate to implement GPP or SPP, and also attributing eco labeling. And then also the last series we will get started together how to implement eco labeling and SPP successfully. This the whole series I would like to pursue your interest. If you have time and interest to learn how to overcome barrier, then we will bring you together with us. Next slide,ค่ะ. Then let's focus on the barrier today. So I would say that government lead the transformation. Now we would like to focus on the barrier number 3 and number 4. Of course, most of you always tell us that, yeah, we would like to adopt the TPP and eco-labeling, but the cost the price of the green products or environmental product are really expensive and unaffordable. So now we have to explore, is it true, or actually they are maybe hidden cost behind or logical thinking behind that we have to understand in order to make our judgment or our decision making well, no? So we should not look at like the price, the sale price when you buy, but how we can consider other hidden cost behind that. So eco institute bring you to a basic understanding on the cost, no, of environmental product and services. And from theoretical part, we will bring you also to a practical case. Now learning from Taiwan that how the Taiwanese government successfully implement GPP in various aspects, no? Either in terms of the policy and political commitment, having a clear policy, and other what do you call the mechanism to support the implementation. And then after Taiwan case, a bit going down dig deep into the instrument or mechanism. So here we public procurement or analysis. After that, after this 2 3 speaker, then we would like to open up for Q&A, no? So either if someone would like to voice your question, please feel free to turn on your microphone and ask, or otherwise you also can write down in the chat box, no, on the right hand side, and then Sarah and Kun Yim will help me in gathering or a question, and then we will have a Q&A. Then maybe last session we will talk a bit on the other measures or possible measure that we found it very interesting. And part you will learn or share experience with the 2 speaker from a different point of view perspective, no? So the first one, from the private sector perspective, here we have Fuji Film Business Innovation Thailand to see that to share their experience with us, that how Fuji Film business innovation in Thailand convert or transform their service, no? So sometimes they might not sell only the printer as a product, but they also have another line of business like the printer rental or leasing that provide to the government agency or other market. And then the last session we will also hear from Malaysia that also from the government point of view, how the viable financing mechanism through on the green public procurement by using eco labeling look like. Of course, one of that we will refer to the EPC, no, the energy performance. After these 2 speaker, we from these 2 speaker, and after that we will wrap up and closing the webinar or dialogue series. So we are in the good time. So let's start with understanding a bit from the theoretical point of view by Asle, no, from Eco Institute from Germany, moving from the lowest cost, no, to the best value mindset. So Asle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kunpla. It's a pleasure to be here today. Good afternoon to everyone and good morning from Germany. I'm here to talk about the barriers that were identified last year in the study that we did with the project, which is, of course, the higher upfront cost of sustainable goods. This is kind of the elephant in the room. We all know that higher cost makes it harder to procure. And we want to use this chance this morning to look a bit into why sustainable goods and services can have higher upfront costs, how just looking at the upfront costs hides some of the value and the higher cost through the life cycle of these goods. And then how we can overcome some of this through our procurement. And I hope this sets us up nicely for the speakers that we have later, who I'm really interested in hearing from as well. So before we get into it, let's just consider why certain goods are cheap and why this is often a bad thing. I mean, at the most basic level, the price of goods reflects the cost of production. But because of the way our current regulations are set up or lack of regulations, a lot of the costs of production are allowed to be placed on others who are outside of the consumer-producer transaction. These costs include the environmental and social costs of pollution, including waste, water pollution, costs for human health, and the actual cost of health care that's required because of these. It can also be the cost placed on government to clean up environmental problems, and the cost that it will inevitably result in when we have to react to and protect ourselves against climate change. These are costs that we already incur, and they're going to grow in the future. So all of these costs aren't reflected in the price of goods, which is why we need to move towards understanding best value. And another problem is that it's just products need to remain competitive on the market. And although we might want to compare the functionality of our products, the durability of our products, the running costs, and other quality factors which will save us as consumers money in the long term, when it comes to it, when we're looking at boxes in the store, whether it's 2 or 10, factors are much harder to differentiate and to predict, whereas price is very visible to us. And price, one of the ways to keep that low is by reducing quality and by reducing the factors that can save us money in the long term. So this is called the split incentive dilemma, and it's basically recognizing that companies are incentivized to reduce their costs rather than increase quality. So as governments and as major buyers of products and services, it's really important to think how we can change that and change the incentives that we're offering companies. And this split incentive dilemma is also very prevalent in the public procurement market, where we can refer to the least acquisition cost paradigm, which is simply to say that we are driven as procurers, as governments, for many decades, we've been driven to save money and to buy the cheapest products. And we are comparing the cost of products using only the upfront costs. But these upfront costs are the tip of the iceberg, so to say, in what that product or service will cost over its entire life cycle. So if we consider the procurement timeframe, we have the upfront purchase price, but then of course there's the recurring costs, so the annual energy costs. If it's an energy using product, there'll be periodic maintenance costs. Then of course, when the product fails, there is the cost of disposal as well. And then the cost of replacing the product. And again, we get into the recurring cycle of costs. So in addition to upfront costs, we also have to think about the entire life cycle costs. And currently, for the most part, these aren't considered in procurement. A very practical example of how this is costing governments money in the long term is this real life example comparing 2 laser printers that are available on the market. The first printer is cheaper in upfront costs by almost €100, so it's a fairly significant price difference. But as you'll see overall, when you consider especially the toner costs, the price difference between these 2 printers is actually almost €1,000 in favor of the more expensive printer. So this is costing governments a lot more money by buying the cheaper product. And the payback time on this more efficient laser printer is actually very short. So you could recoup this 1,000 price difference in just under 4 months. So it's a really strong example of why life cycle costs are important to consider in procurement. But of course, this requires a complete shift in mindset. As I said, we've been encouraging procurers for decades to focus on reducing costs, and we also have to overcome the kind of very human factors that price comparison is easy to do. It's using processes that have been long established and that procurers have been trained in and have been using for many years. And these are two things that we're going to come back to in one of the later dialogues. So I won't speak any more about how to train procurers or to build capacity. But what I do want to talk about today is this fear of audit, which is another major barrier to why procurers are afraid to deviate from a lowest cost model for procurement. They fear straying too far from procurement regulation. They fear being challenged by a supplier, a purchase that they've made being brought up in court. So how can we overcome this? That it's allowed to buy sustainably and encouraged by politicians and their superiors to buy sustainably. And an even stronger signal to procurers is to make sustainable public procurement mandatory. And a great example of this is the recent German General Administrative Regulation for federal level procurers, the AVV Klima law, or administrative guidelines. These require that procurers have to consider the greenhouse gas emissions caused by products when buying. They also have to base their specifications on the highest energy efficiency class available on the European market at the time of procurement. And in addition to that, they have to take life cycle costs into account, plus the cost of the greenhouse gas emissions, which is determined using a CO2 price. So it's very clear that not only are they allowed to do SPP, but they actually must do SPP. But in addition to these kind of more mindset barriers, there are some very practical considerations when considering why procurers buy lowest costs. The first is the budget that's available to them. It's often the case that the budget to buy something is based on what that product cost in the past. So if you previously purchased an unsustainable product, then you will only have the money to buy the same unsustainable product again. One possible solution to this is to change how budgets are worked out, to not base it on past consumption, but to rather base it on future consumption costs, or the future costs, including the life cycle costs. Another practical barrier is the fact that sometimes life cycle costs do require time to build. So although in the printer example I showed you the cost recouping for the printers was very fast, this of course isn't always the case. Some products might only become cost competitive over a longer time period, and this doesn't match with the short political cycles and the pressure on politicians to save money in the short term. Another solution to this is to reframe procurement costs as an investment in other important industrial sectors in the country, or as an innovation policy. So yeah, rather than thinking about cost, consider procurement as an investment. And then finally, I just want to touch on two innovative purchase models as well. So we've heard about life cycle costing, but there's other ways that the way we buy, so not just the way that we compare goods, but the way we buy in the first place, can encourage and incentivize more quality products and savings for both the private sector, the suppliers, and the public sector. The first is energy performance contracting. This has been very successfully used in renovation projects for buildings, so making a building more energy efficient, installing renewable energy solutions and so on in the building, as well as insulating it, or that's more European to insulate the building. It might be how to cool the building as well. What is done is that the energy service provider is invited to make all of the renovations that are necessary, and this is framed as an investment for the service provider, and they get a share of the savings that are generated from that. For the facility owner, they don't have to pay for the renovation costs, but they can also get a share in the generated savings. Sorry, I think someone is unmuted.
Yes, one second, actually. Excuse me, participants. Could you make sure that your mic is mute?
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
And finally, I just there's the product service system model, which Kumpla also already mentioned. In this model, rather than buying a product, the customer, the public sector buyer, buys the product as a service. This means that the product owner retains ownership of the product and the resources involved in that. And it's in their interest to make sure that that product lasts long and doesn't involve many maintenance costs, double for those costs rather as the owner of the product. So this can also generate savings for the public sector, but also encourage and incentivize investments in quality of the products. These are both things that we're going to hear some practical examples of. So I know theoretically it can be difficult to get your head around some of these models until you've seen them in action. So I'm really pleased that other speakers are going to pick up on this later today. So for now, I will hand back to Kumpla, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Yes, at least I think basic understanding, no, about when we talk about the cost of the product, and also why we would like to propose the principle of like the value for money principle when you consider the product or when you procure the product and services, because of course that there are many other hidden costs behind that you may not take into your account yet. So if you look at the sale price, you might this one is cheaper, and it's sometimes that the cheapest product may not provide you in term of a good quality of the product.
Could you turn on your camera?
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, maybe the cheaper product may not provide you a good enough in terms of either quality or even saving money if you look at the lifetime, no, of that product and services. I think that probably I think we always aware of that, even we may not understand it well. I think we understand, but just the way how we accept it, no. So maybe we have to visualize or you more with a practical case that at least firstly, I think we have to change our mindset and also later on take the action, no? So I would like to draw then your attention to a practical case from Taiwan, no? Dr. Qian, the Director General from the Department of Supervision, Evaluation and Dispute Resolution from Taiwan will give you some idea that how Taiwan successfully implement GPP in various aspects. So, Dr. Chen, the floor is your car.
Yes, thank you so much. So may I share my material first?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you also turn on your camera if it's okay? Okay, now I see you. Okay.
Oh, can you see me?
Yes, very nice.
Oh, Very nice. Okay. Okay. So today I will share with you the long path to green public procurements, especially in Taiwan. May I say that it's a successful model of Taiwan's GPP. I'm with Taiwan EPA and I'm with Taiwan EPA for more than 30 years. Can you imagine that? 30 years. So, can you hear me?
Very well, Ka. Very well. Please
Okay, thank
continue.
you. And today I will go with the introduction and net zero by 2020. And however, behavior changes. And we have promote the green living promotion is a life transformation. All of the life transformation is based on the sustainable procurement. So finally, I will sum up with one house because green for life, and we adopt the GPP. All is for environment and health. Uh, Next page, I will go with the net zero emission. As you may know, 2015, the Paris agreements that conducted that holding the increase in the global average temperature may be below 2 Celsius above the pre-industrialized level. But however, it's not enough. Maybe 1.5 Celsius is a most important roadmap for us. And the net zero emission now play a very serious and a very important role. So we can mitigation and remove. But however, how to do that? Not only from the supply side, but also the demand side. So when we mention the demand side, the behavior change is the most important by 2030. So when we think with the net zero emission, green living, and we may say behavior change is the most important. So we conducted the incentive and mandatory, and not only mandatory, but we have conducted green point subsidy first, and then we have the act, green procurement, government procurement act, and carbon footprint. Now we talk about labeling. So for the green living, what is green living? The way of life of a person or society with the goal of sustainable development. So now we want to internalize environmental awareness into our daily habits. So from using local, from protect the environment, cherish resources. Uh, when now you can look at the press conference kicked off by my minister, Dr. Minister John, when 2020, and that's year 2022, 2021, the April 22 is Earth Day. We launched the intergovernment cooperation milestone for promoting green living. And it's also aligned with the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 11, SDG 12 as well. Of course, SDG 17 partnership is the most important. The direction for living green, from green diet, green office, green household, green travel, also green consumption. Today, we want to address green consumption, increasing quality of green procurement, increasing government green procurement amount, and encourage the public to choose green consumption, offering green points as incentive for environmental friendly action. May you know about the green points? I will tell you later on. So what's sustainable procurement? The most important is not only procure, it means make sure that the product and services we buy are as sustainable as possible with the lowest environmental impact and most positive social results. We are talking about the development of eco label and SCP in Taiwan. This is our milestone, the first stage, eco label development from 1993 to 1998, and GPP promotion from 1998 to 2015. And we have a whole picture for green life, green living promotion from 2016, and now GPP from 2016 to now. The government first. Why the government first? Because government can provide the economic incentive for are needed for SCP. The government can provide and need to focus on large group buyer first. Who is the large buyer? May you know, maybe government. And the government agency are often the country's largest group purchase. And the government procurement business opportunity account for about 15 to 20% of global GDP. Governments are organized and efficient. It is easy to demonstrate the effectiveness of sustainable procurement. So from the government first, how can do from the government first? The incentive and the law as well. May you know, we have the government procurement law in Taiwan, and we emphasize the recycled material, returnable products, low pollution, and energy saving. And you know that the priority of the government procurements need to choose this kind of products. Purchase target of Taiwan's SPP, we have many labels, and you can see in this slide, this is our label 1, label 2, and this energy saving and carbon footprint, and also Taiwan wood label and green building label. So eco labels of Taiwan government, many of that. You can choose many of that, one of your purchase target. And the international and the foreign eco label show as here. And how can we do that? We think about the how to success, factor of success. We can share with you, and you may input some idea from 2001 Taiwan's GPP program. We think about that. Maybe we need to mandatory for all the government agency and purchase target. What kind of purchase target? Label, so eco label product. When we see that kind of label, we can buy it, we can purchase it, and with enough education, environmental education really play a very important role in that kind of program, and the monitoring and performance with published GPP reports. So monitoring performance, that means transparency. We report every year to improve the performance. We not only report, but we have peer pressure that compete. We have the at word of government procurement at word. So that's what the success factor. Taiwan's GPP performance assessment from the amount ratio, money, and the green office. We verify the green office and on labor service and construction. This is the number and statistic of green purchase and consumption of Taiwan. You can see from 2014 to 2021, it's a growth curve. And we also have challenge. Common challenges, first, we mentioned about the insufficient determination and support. And price barrier, maybe we can choose cheaper, but why for green? And the green products are difficult to define and increase the burden of procurement operation. So operation cost and too many agencies, how to integrate. But we think about that every day, and we have the intergovernmental platform to solve this kind of problem. We have legal and policy support, and 10% price difference allowed, and take the green label product as the clear GPP target, and also common supply construct, simplify the procurement process, and the last one, and develop automatic green procurement statistic tools. We stand here, look forward. Next step, GPP for private sector, GP promote of ISO 24000, increase private GP, promotion of EL for services, and green consumption for green life. Now, I will introduce the very interesting one for green points. Use the financial incentive of green points to encourage the implementation of green living and green consumption. When you purchase the green one, you get the point, and the point is equal to the money. So purchase green goods, taking public transportation or participation in environmental protection action to get sustainable feedback and realize valuable environmental protection action. Every environmental protection action take account into green points, and then you can use the green points to credit what you want to buy. To get some summary, eco-label are the best tool to identify green products. Now we have the eco-label. Successful GPP requires policy support and a continual monitoring. Now we have the Government Procurement Act, and GPP can provide economic incentive for SCP. And we also need your cooperation. Successful GPP can lay on the foundation for green living. May we work together toward green living. I will share with you when I was in Kenya, in front of the World Charter of Nature. I have an idea. Every bit of our effort can make the environmental better, green for life. And we think we can work together toward the green procurement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shen from Taiwan, for very excellent presentation. And I think your presentation inspire us and build our confidence that the GPP and eco labeling also one of very a powerful instrument that the government shall take the lead. Sound interesting when you talk about, like, of course Taiwan also were facing with many barrier that presented, no? But you also show us that how you can overcome that. For me, like when you talk about the price, right, when most of the people thinking that the price of the environmental or green product is very expensive, then your solution is that then put in the guideline that we allow like 10% of price difference. That would allow the procurer to do so or adopt, because from the procurer point of view, they need something like that allow them, or at least encourage them to do so. As Lei presented that procurer may feel reluctant or afraid of the auditing, no, a period that they might be audited and it found something. So I think that we see a various solution that can tackle some barrier that Taiwan were facing in the past, and also presented what a success factor, like having a clear target, a clear policy and planning, and also goals, no, and also monitoring system, having EL as a tool for green public procurement implementation, and also education in order to raise awareness and ability of implementation, either from procurer or general consumer. Lastly, I very appreciated when you the last few slides, very innovative instrument, no, on the green point. I think that even our region or our country may be still far away from that, but inspire us that maybe in the next couple of year we shall think about innovative instrument that we can encourage the people in order to change the behavior. I believe that the consumer need something to shape them, no, in order to transform their behavior. If you just sit alone and ask them to buy the green product, maybe sometimes it's not enough. We have to have a kind of the instrument or mechanism that we have to shape their consumption pattern. Thank you very much for Taiwan. Before I move to another practical case, may I also, no, participant, if you have any questions at the moment, to ask Lei, the first speaker, and also from Taiwan case, of course, that you can write down in the chat box, and we have our co-moderator helping you to put or compile all your question here. So allow me to move forward to another practical case on the life cycle costing. As I presented, that we have to think about the cost throughout the life cycle, no? To ensure that every cost that hinder will be internalized into the real cost. Here we will have a Philippine Department of Energy Director Patrick, no, Kuno. I'm so sorry for him that because say sorry to that, but so kind to record that a presentation that we can present to you here, and then we also will have a representative willing to stay with us in order to handling with the question. So let's move to walk the talk on the life cycle costing.
Okay, I will play the video now. Please let me know if you cannot hear the sound, or else I will continue, okay?
Good day, everyone. We are pleased to join you with the Walk the Talk, Government Leads the Transformation discussions. Allow me to present. This is Director Patrick Kino of the Department of Energy. On April 12, 2019, the Philippines passed Republic Act number 11285, or the Energy Efficiency and Conservation EEC Act, which aims to institutionalize rationalize energy efficiency and conservation, enhance the efficient use of energy, and grant incentives to energy efficiency and conservation projects. Part of the EEC Act is the Government Energy Management Program, or GEMP. This refers to the government-wide program aimed at reducing the monthly consumption of electricity and petroleum products by at least 10% through energy efficiency and efficiency and conservation in fuel use for government buildings and facilities. Also provided under the EEC Act is the Interagency Energy Efficiency and Conservation Committee, or IAEECC, tasked to evaluate and approve government energy efficiency projects and to provide for the strategic direction in the implementation of the GEMP. In relation to air conditioning systems for government, the IAEECC resolution number 2 directed all of government, including local government units and foreign service posts, to use inverter type air conditioning units or similar equivalent technologies in government buildings and facilities as a requirement for compliance under the GEMP. In line with the government's role of leading transformation, we'd like to share with you the Philippine Department of Energy's experience in retrofitting its air conditioning units. Prior to its retrofitting, it's important to calculate the cooling capacity of the building space. The formula considers, of course, the area of the space and the number of occupants. Presented on the slides now are the formulas that we use to establish the estimated consumption and simple payback periods, which are essential in calculating the analysis for particular government energy efficiency key parameters shown on the slide is the sample computation. This to a consumption 6,000 per month. To continue, the government units and foreign service posts through the online system, which is accessible through mobile and desktop platforms. The system allows for any agency to easily upload and check information in terms of energy consumption, covering electricity and fuel use. It also requires to upload information with respect to their energy efficiency and conservation officer and focal portions. And it also is used to quickly disseminate information in terms of policies materials for EEC. As I mentioned, the DOE regularly conducts energy audits and spot checks throughout the country. We are doing this by virtue of IAEECC resolution number 1. During those energy audits or spot checks, lighting and air conditioning systems are assessed based on the prescribed technologies and practices. The energy audits and spot checks help government to identify areas for improvement as well as potential for energy efficiency projects. Lastly, the DOE also holds various information education campaign programs which aims to promote energy efficiency and conservation in the country. These campaigns help update government on new policies, measures on EENC. These are also platforms to harmonize all of the energy efficiency and conservation efforts of the government aimed at reducing its energy requirements. That ends the presentation. Thank you for your kind attention.
So
That's the end.
Yes, so I think that is also really a good case to visualize that, especially through the case of like air conditioning and cooling system, that how the calculation look like, and when you have to compare between a different type of the product in order to make decision. Actually, it's not about like you consider only the sale price, like the price at you buy, but also before making decision, the calculation based on cost benefits analysis, and also consider your use phase. Uh, I always talk many times that air conditioning is very a good point when we talk about the life cycle costing. Because of course, if you look at the sale price at when you buy something else, but of course that you did not consider the use phase and also disposal phase. Actually, especially for energy related product and services, the use phase is very important because it consumes your energy, which not include in the sale price yet. So that's why before the product and services, maybe you have to consider the cost throughout the life cycle, like the use phase, the disposal phase. นะคะ so I think that a very a good case from Philippines to see how calculation, even it very technical that someone may not understand, but at least give you some picture that how the formulation look like. Now I would like to open up the floor for a Q&A for to these three speakers, either from direct to Ashley from the theoretical point of view. If you still wonder on the barrier number three, like and also number four, number three, talking about this the acquisition cost paradigm, and barrier number four about high upfront cost. Of course, you can ask Ashley directly, or maybe if you would like to maybe learn more from Taiwan, how they manage some policy or some instrument. Sure. So here are the first questions. Maybe I guess that it will go to Taiwan. Hopefully that Dr. Chen still with us. So the question is that in terms of management, how does the green points work? No, in Taiwan, because it might need also a multi ministerial involvement. So, Dr. Chen, is you still with us? The floor is you to maybe give some information for us. Dr. Chen.
Hui Chen, are you still with us? Or your team from Taiwan?
Sarah, can you help in checking in the list of participants whether there is any like EPA representative from EPA Taiwan representative? Maybe they can give some additional information.
Okay, ได้ค่ะ I will write a message in the chat. In the meantime, I think we are also happy if the participants can type the questions in the message or can open the camera and then ask the questions. Okay. We have one more question now. Also to Taiwan. Okay.
Yes. So the second question, that how Taiwanese use the peer pressure to improve the performance, and then the audience or the participant would like to get more some detail. But I think unluckily we already lost our speaker somewhere.
And Pla, I could say something very shortly on.
Perfect. Ashley, if you can maybe give some idea in general, maybe, no?
Yeah, also had a dialogue presentation for the Scaling SCP project, and we talked about the importance of monitoring and evaluation. And this is another way of saying peer pressure, because it's very powerful to see how much GPP different agencies are doing and to rank them. And I think Thailand presented there on some good experience they have in the past of having awards for the best performers. So I would say that's a form of peer pressure. So monitoring how much GPP people are doing and comparing them, that often helps encourage those who aren't doing as much to keep up with their neighbors.
Pipla and Ashley, very quickly, we have an update from our Taiwanese colleague and speaker that they have some connection problem. And so that's why, but maybe when we come back, we can invite them to
No problem, but anyhow, maybe we able to deal with the question that directly to Ashley. Ashley, there is a question to you that based on your explanation, no, the EPC and PSS are managed by Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Environment.
Yes, thanks for the question. So energy performance contracts and product service system contracts as well, they're both contract types. So they're managed directly by the contracting authority. That can be any public procurement agency, including a Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Environment. So it's really down to the public buyer, and I wouldn't say it's directly controlled by a ministry. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I guess so. No, that actually EPC or PLS is like a tools, no, that can also being implemented at the public identity in our ministry. But of course, that the guideline or maybe we have to have a look at some technical document in terms of like how having the standard in order to do this.
Yeah, that I would agree with that. It's a tool, but the policy can come from either the Ministry of Finance or a Ministry of Environment. But I think that guidance or policies that come from the Ministry of Finance are often a little bit more powerful with public procurers, because these are also the agencies that are responsible for the audits.
Let's say that product service system, for as you present your presentation, is that we have to transform the product not to the service, meaning that of course that in terms of access, the government will not own the product anymore, but they have to buy the service. So in terms of either access, no, ownership, and many things that something that we have to change some mindset or guideline.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not so sure whether we still have time for Taiwan if they are back. Dr. Chen from Taiwan, or maybe we come back later. So then I think that if you still have some question remain, so feel free to type in the chat box. We will gather and then answer you maybe at the last session again, because anyhow in the last session we still have time and chance to. Sarah, would you like to?
Okay, I recommended the Taiwanese colleagues to log out and then rejoin again, and then we can ask them again in the next Q&A round. But can we have a look at this one last question before we move on to the next speaker?
So the last question is, how does the collaboration among government, public public and private sector to implement green public procurement in other country? What are the initiatives or a strategy? It's quite very broad. I think what called broad question. Maybe Ashley, I go directly to you. If
So
you may, I will add later.
we also have Miss Lana from the Philippines on standby as well, in case we would like to ask from the Philippine case.
Yeah, okay. I can very quickly say that collaboration is important because, of course, you can't buy green products if they're not available on the market. So, understanding the market, having market dialogues, and making it very clear to the market what the strategy is important. And the private sector can also be a source of promoting green public procurement. In many countries, when there is a green industry, they can be quite vocal in demanding that the government invests in green products. So this collaboration is important. And I think that it might be a topic that we can come back to in the later question and answer once we've heard from the next speakers.
Yes, ka. Thank you very much, Ashley. Maybe if any speaker either from Philippines or from Taiwan, if you would like to add on, please feel free to do so, ka.
Hi, good afternoon from the Philippines. In behalf of
Yes.
Miss Lana, um, we'd like to share some insights with regards to the last question. Um, One of the initiatives that could be done to implement green procurement would be possibly creating a roadmap involving the government and the private sector, and maybe through the roadmap, we your office or your country can gradually shift key technologies or gradually implement small changes in procurement because as we understand, it's really hard and difficult to shift within 1 year all your procurement to green procurement, especially in our case. So what we do is gradually we promote for the government sector. We promote the procurement of energy efficient lightings and AC units, and gradually we will move towards possibly having a more fuel efficient transportation for government. So it's a gradual process, and what's important is like what Miss Ashley has shared is really um, those dialogues. There has to be a continuous or a series of dialogues. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can you, sorry, can you hear me now? I'm from
Yes, ka.
Taiwan.
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. For Dr. Chen has some connecting problems, so maybe I will answer the questions for her. I'm
Yep.
Chen, the project leader of Taiwan Eco Label. I heard the questions about Greenpoint and about the peer review, also peer pressure. Both the Greenpoint system and the GPP performance evaluation takes the cooperation from many different government agencies. And so that's why these two projects are both operated or initiated by our executive yuan. That's the highest executive government agency. So with the support of our executive yuan, so we can get cooperation from different government agencies for these two green policies. And because we publish GPP report every year, so of course different government agencies will compare their performance among different government agencies. That's why we use peer pressure to, maybe I can say, to force the different government agencies to improve their GPP performance. That's what the peer pressure means by publishing the GPP report to the press, so the different government agencies can feel the pressure and they are forced to practice GPP better. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ka, for the clear answer from Taiwan. Before hand over to to the next session, I think that I just would like to add also, just from my experience, that because the last question regarding that how the collaboration, like talking among the collaboration among a government agency, because when we talk about GPP, of course that it related to like Ministry of Finance, no, Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Industry. I think the initiative at the early stage also would be that you should have a kind of the coordination mechanism to ensure that a solo agency or ministry able to work together. For example, it could be a form of maybe you set up a steering committee or the working group and working together as a, because otherwise if like talk from time to time and you don't have a clear direction, of course from Philippines that is that having the roadmap also that would probably very helpful that to shape your direction that what you want to achieve in some certain year, maybe 5 year, 7 year, and who should taking care of what. So I think that having a clear direction or clear pathway and also strategy, and also having a coordination mechanism like steering structure or maybe task force or whatever form, no, that you call like steering committee, task force, a technical working group or whatsoever, that also can create a kind of the space that the various agency can work together and in order to achieve the same goal together. So I think from the Q&A first slot, I would like to close it here for now on, but we will have a chance to have a question and answer in the last session. Allow me to bring you to the next session. As SLA presented some measures or possible measures that can help us to overcome the barrier, no, on the cost acquisition cost paradigm and also high upfront cost. One hand is about the product service system. So as I mentioned earlier, that we would like to hear from the private sector perspective, because if the government put the demand toward that PSS, of course that the private sector itself have to adjust or adapt themselves as well. And as I said that now we transform, we don't buy a product, but we buy a service. In terms of investment calculation, maintenance cost, how it look like, because the government will not taking care of the maintenance cost anymore. It's a private sector who supply or who offer the service. Now we have the Fuji Film Innovation Thailand to share their experience from private sector perspective. Sarah, I did not see the presentation. Ka.
Yes, Mr. Suboy Sang.
Okay.
Okay, you share the screen.
Okay. Ka. So we will have the speaker from Fuji Film, no, Thailand to share their experience. Mr. Hayato
Uh,
Tsubo,
Hi, hello.
right?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
very good.
perfect.
Okay. Okay. Hi, nice meeting you, everyone. My name is Hayato Tsuboy from Hayato from Fujifilm Business Innovation Thailand. Okay. Today I have 50 minutes. So from the private sector, I would like to introduce some of the change in our business model, which can help for the eco-friendly environment and also with in terms of the cost efficiency. So today I only have 15 minutes, so let me run through quickly for what we have been doing. Okay. Fujifilm Business Innovation. I think some of you guys might not heard of this company name, there, but this is former Fuji Xerox. Okay, Xerox, which is we've been providing A4 printers and A3 multifunctional devices. We also provide some of the big machines which are used for the graphic communications. Okay, these are our major business domains. Now we've been providing a lot of softwares, with including workflow or supporting the digitalization. But today I would like to focus on the printers that maybe some of you might be using at your office. Okay. Okay, as I think you guys might have an idea, but as a manufacturer of Fujifilm, we sell machine and a consumable to let the customer print the document into the paper. Okay, so we also provide the services. Our engineer will go to your office and repair machine, and we get the value in an exchange. So this is just a very simple flow of what we provide to the customer. Okay, basically, in terms of the machine we sell, we provide maintenance, and actually the customers pay for the value. Okay, so I think that this is very familiar to all of you, I believe. Okay, one thing about this process. Okay, customer will be which will be you will buy the machine, which means the machine asset actually belongs to you. Okay, so whichever normally the contract period is around 5 years, but within the 5 years, okay, the asset belongs to you. So whether you use it for 5 years or you extend. This is one of the options, but most likely you will not want to release it before the contract timing ends. Okay, these have been our business model for more than 40, 50 years. Okay, however, but as the environmental change, okay, now we're trying to offer a printer as a service model, which we call the managed print services. Okay, what exactly is this? Is customer does not have to buy the machine, but we offer the printer as a service. Okay, what this does this mean? Okay, same picture as the previous page. But actually, okay, us, Fujifilm, will provide the machine, provide the maintenance. Okay, this is similar to the previous page, but we don't sell. Okay, the customer actually how they pay is they pay by the click charge of the print volume that they use. So actually, the machine belongs to Fujifilm, which means that the customer can actually add in or decrease the number of machine whenever they wish. So not only for government sector, but even for the private sectors, this service is quite welcome. Why? Which is because okay, during the COVID situation, okay, the customer actually close their offices or work from home, then actually the machine is not necessary. Okay. On the other hand, if they want to open a new office, they need a new machine. In that case, we okay. Whenever they have a new office, they don't want to buy a new machine, so we actually provide the machine, but then we get the value in exchange from the usage amount. This is how we use the printer as a service. Okay, and then I would like to mention about why we offer this service. Okay, okay, this one I would like you to imagine. Okay, there's a faucet. Okay, there are several faucets in the your let's say at your office. Okay, if you reduce the number of faucets, this one will naturally reduce the usage of the water. Okay, if you reduce the number of printers, actually, it will definitely lead to a less paper environment. Okay, this one we have been searching. We've been doing the exam. We've been trying by ourselves. Actually, in our previously 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we had a small printer at every row of our office. Okay, at that time, because the printer is very close to your seat, it's actually very convenient to just print and go take the paper and then get back to your seat. Okay, but then once you consolidate these printers, let's say for example, 5 printers to one A3 multifunctional devices. Okay, actually, it led to a less paper environment. In our office, we actually reduced 41% of our paper. Okay, this one, okay, for our business model, if the customer prints, we generate revenue, we get the revenue. So less paper means less revenue for our company. However, if we look into the environment or the society, less paper means eco-friendly. And also, because now the society is coming for the digitalization. Okay, in the digitalized world, paper is not necessary. Okay, so in terms of eco, in terms of cost, in terms of okay, basically we can contribute to all of these things. That's why we are trying to offer this service. However, okay, one key point is that okay, we actually need to assess your environment, the customer's environment. Okay, if we don't have the data, we don't know how many we should reduce or increase. Okay, so this is the thing. This is a key point. But we started to assess the customer's environment, office environment, and then reduce, which is the reduce some of the printers which is not necessary for that office. Okay, so because we have this technology to identify the exact amount that the necessary amount of the printers, that's why we can offer this kind of service. Okay. So okay, today my presentation is very simple. But then in the government sector in Thailand or other countries, actually we have been starting to offer this service. Okay. Okay. Please bear in mind that this is not only for the government but also for the private sector. But the customer actually wants to reduce the cost. Number one. Number two, create the eco-friendly environment. Number three is shift to digitalization. Okay. This is the ultimate goal for the customer in terms of the office environment. Okay. What Fujifilm can offer? We can, number one, this is the very important point for us, but we can provide the office environment assessment that I mentioned in the previous page. Okay. If we have the accurate office environment assessment, we can propose the adequate number of printer devices in each office. If we have the adequate number of printer devices that we can estimate, we can provide the printer as a service model for customer to have the easy management in terms of the printers. Okay, this will actually lead to all these three customers' desire. Okay, first is a lower cost. By some office they have 100 units of printers. Maybe we can reduce to 70. In that case, this total, okay, one of the printer one by one could be more expensive. However, in terms of the total cost, we can lower down the cost. Okay, number two is, as I mentioned, less paper means it will contribute to the ECO, which is the green procurement policy also. And at last, in terms of the digital transformation, okay, this one less paper create environment to work with the digital environment. Okay, the society will move more and more to the digitalized world. So this, in order to prepare for this upcoming world trend, we will offer some of the solution that to support the customers for the digital transformation. Okay, that's all from my presentation. So if you have any questions, then feel free to let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ka. And again, if you have any question to this speaker, you can type, and then I think we have time. Sorry, we have time to see your question. I think it's very interesting. Of course, that printer is just one example among other products that currently we think that PSS it become more and more important, no? As the people transform from buying a product to the services, and we see that how Fujifilm has to prepare, for example, of course, that the assessment of the demand because it's shipping many costs from a product then into their hand, into a service hand, no? Then the mindset and also the business plan had to be put in place very well. I I could imagine that in the next couple of years also there will be more and more in terms of PSS. Currently, you can see other example like the car, for example. Some people they don't buy a car as a product anymore, or they don't own the car as a product. They buy a service like from Uber, from Grab, right? Or maybe look at the resident, the house or apartment. The people who own the house or the apartment or condominium transform their product into the service at the Airbnb, for example, or the people will not buy the movie CD anymore, but they just using the service from Netflix. Just for example, that how this concept become more and more popular at the moment, and of course linked to the digitalization as Fujifilm has concluded at the last slide that we cannot avoid this, but we have to adjust our way of consumption accordingly. So after hearing from the private sector perspective, then we would like to draw your attention to the last slide. Let's hear from Malaysia again, Malilam, from the government perspective, that how also energy performance contracting mechanism and also wider financing mechanism in the green public procurement by using eco-labeling look like in Malaysia. And here we have Mr. Hakau, no? Muhammad Safi from Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Division Technology Solution Group. So Mr. Hakau, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me and loud
Yes,
and clear.
clearly.
So my name is Haika. Thank you. I'm Haika from Malaysian Green Technology and Climate Change Corporation, a government agency under the purview of the Ministry of Environment and Water, Malaysia. And good afternoon and also good morning to everyone. So I'll be talking about Maryland project and as well as viable financing mechanism in green public procurement using eco-label. Okay, so the full project title was Government Green Procurement Implementation at Local Authorities Level through Lighting Retrofit in Supporting Low Carbon Cities Initiative, in short, MyReLem. Quite a long project title because the project nature was initially about eco-label as well as government green procurement, but we packaged it with existing initiative in Malaysia such as low carbon cities, energy management and other initiatives. And for your information, in Malaysia, the term used is government green procurement. So I will be mentioning GGP. So it's actually a similar term to GPP, just in case if anyone is confused. Okay, so the project was funded by the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Building and Nuclear Safety, BUMUB, Germany, through GIZ. Thank you to both parties for funding the project. And the project was supported by the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia. And MGTC, my agency, was the project implementing agency. And this project involved 4 pilot local authorities, namely Ipoh City Council, Pasir Gudang City Council, Langkawi Municipal Council, and also Hulu Selangor District Council. So this project commenced in October 2019 and was successfully completed in December 2020, with the main objective to enhance the adoption of government green procurement to local authorities through the installation of environment-friendly and energy-efficient lighting. Okay, so we begin with introducing GGP to the local authorities. For information, Malaysia has started the implementation of GGP since year 2016. Okay, so up to 2019, the implementation was only at the federal government level. So we did not um, enter the state level yet during that time. So we started to enter the state level through the local authorities from this project. So we did capacity building on GGP for the technical and procurement staff for the 4 pilot local authorities, and then all 4 pilot local authorities have formally adopted GGP through lighting retrofit, where we have embedded GGP criteria in their tender documentation. So before this project, there was nothing about GGP mentioned in their procurement documents. So as you can see on the screen, we started in 2016 with only 20 product groups of GGP. Until 2019, we have 30 products group. And then in 2020, when this project came in, we already established another 10 additional product groups for GGP, including street lighting. So now we have actually 40 product groups. And now it already involves not only the ministries from the federal government, but also involves state government as well as local authorities. So the ultimate target is by 2025, we want to achieve GDP target of 25%. Okay, so the second outcome of the project was to review and update available lighting product criteria under eco-labeling scheme. So in Malaysia, Sirim Berhad is the eco-label body. So through this project, we have developed 2 product criteria. One is for indoor lighting and another one is for street lighting. So as the output of the project, we have published both product criteria document. And for street lighting, we have Sirim Berhad as the eco-label body has actually certified 5 street lighting products. Okay. And then as I mentioned just now, we also developed a new product group under GGP guidelines, which is PG32 specific for street lighting. So before this project came in, we did not have any product group, a GGP product group for street lighting. So now we have it. And it is already published in our Government Green Procurement Guidelines 3.0. Okay, so this is our statistic of GGP as of 2020. So we have started capturing data for street lighting as well. Before this, we have no data on street lighting, but the actual number could be bigger because this statistic is based on the data that we receive from the agencies. So some of the agencies have yet to submit their report. Okay, so the third outcome we wanted to support the lighting energy efficiency projects at local authority. So we did investment grade audit for the 4 local authorities. So through the investment grade audit activity, we managed to identify the energy saving potential in terms of the investment required as well as the payback period, etc. And then we also help the 4 local authorities to develop sustainable energy management system. This is quite similar to ISO 9001, which is for quality management system, but this one is specific to energy management system. So we help the local authorities to develop their own energy policy, energy manual, energy monitoring system, etc. And we coach them in terms of the energy management system implementation. And then we also help the local authorities to do their lighting retrofit. I'll be sharing more about the statistic later in the next slides. And after they completed their lighting retrofit, we also did measurement and verification. So we actually did measurement and verification for pre-retrofit and post-retrofit. So before the retrofit, we identified the potential saving, and then after the retrofit, we identified the actual saving. And then after they completed the lighting retrofit activity, we also helped them to monitor the lighting performance. Okay, so this is the statistics of the lighting retrofit. You can see the quantity involved for the four local authorities. Some local authorities change from 250 watt to 120 watt, and some change from 150 watt to 120 watt. So it depends on their requirement. So you can also see the impact on the right hand side column. So out of the four local authorities, three local authorities completed their lighting retrofit. Only one did not pursue the lighting retrofit project due to unavoidable circumstances. Okay, so this is based on our measurement and verification data. So we have proven that LED is at least 20% more efficient compared to conventional lighting. And the saving is higher for the project that involve replacement of 250 watt to 120 watt lighting. Yeah? And in terms of luminance, the luminance for LED is at least 75% better, but most of them are 150% better. This is based on real site measurement. Okay, and then still in outcome three, as I mentioned just now, we package this project with our existing initiative in Malaysia. The local authorities, all 145 local authorities in Malaysia are implementing low carbon cities framework project. So we help them to do capacity building for them to go towards green cities, and we help them to develop their low carbon city action plan, and also we help to develop a city carbon emissions management system. So when they have the action plan, they will embed all their plan initiative, including lighting retrofit for short term and also long term period. And using the developed city carbon emission management system, they will be able to key in all their resources as well as their energy input into the system, and they will be able to use the system for monitoring and also for analysis. Okay, and then outcome four, we also engage the local authorities in terms of proving that LED is affordable through viable financing mechanism. So we gathered their feedback on viable financing mechanism. So for this project, we tested three financing mechanism, namely outright purchase, leasing, and also energy performance contracting (EPC). So as the result, one local authority chose leasing, and three more chose self-financing. So I will explain their reasons later. Okay, so these are the differences between the three financing mechanisms. So for self-financing, it is quite straightforward. You have the money, then you pay 100% cost upfront. So the asset will belong to you, and the maintenance is under your responsibility. But for leasing, in this case, leasing means lease to own. Like you purchase your car, so you will pay a fixed monthly amount to the supplier. So for leasing, in this case, the local authority will pay the contractor or the supplier a fixed monthly installment for a certain period, and the asset will only belong to the local authority after full payment is made. Let's say the contract is for 5 years, so after the 5-year period end, then only the asset will be under their ownership. And through the 5-year contract period, the maintenance will be under the local authority's responsibility. But some supplier offer to bear the maintenance cost under them within the contract period. So this will be subject to the contract. And then the last one is energy performance contracting. So the first speaker has covered some part of EPC. So for EPC, the premise owner or the local authority will not need to spend upfront costs, because all the costs will be borne by third party, in this case ESCO, Energy Service Company. So of course, before they conduct EPC, they will conduct investment grade audit first, because they want to be confident about the potential saving. Once they are confident, then they will only proceed to the next stage, which is contract negotiation. So for EPC contract negotiation, the most important elements that we need to consider are to have payment terms, buyout option, recurring budgeting, assets ownership, as well as exit clause. So for recurrent budgeting, you will need to have fixed monthly budget to pay the supplier or the ESCO, based on the payment terms, and you will need to be clear about the assets ownership as well as exit clause. Let's say the savings granted is not achievable, then you need to apply the exit clause. Okay, and then once you have signed the contract, the payment will be paid monthly from the energy saving, either full or shared. Okay, so I will show a real example later. And for EPC, the asset normally belongs to the local authority after the contract period ends. And compared to leasing, the contract period for EPC is normally longer. Let's say 7 years minimum, and even can be up to 10 years or 12 years, for example. And the best thing is about EPC is maintenance will be under the third party during the contract period. Okay, so this is the real impact of leasing project by one of the local authorities under this project. So they spent 3.8 million ringgit Malaysia to change 1,200 units of street lights. Okay, so their monthly payment to the supplier is around 68,000, and the contract period is 60 months or 5 years. Okay, so you imagine with the same amount that they need to pay to the supplier in 1 year time, that means 68,000 times 12, they will only be able to change about 200 plus number of street lightings. But with leasing financing mechanism, they will be able to change 1,200 units of street lightings, because the full payment is made within 5 years period. So that is the advantage of using leasing financing mechanism, because you can straight away replace higher number of street lightings due to the lower capital expenditure required upfront. Okay, so here is an example for EPC. Okay, as I mentioned just now, the monthly payment will be paid to the ESCO using the savings generated from the project. So let's say before the implementation of EPC, your bill is on the left side, and then once you implemented your EPC project, your bill is lower, so you will have a lower bill, and the saving generated, you can either share it between two parties, or you can pay 100% to the ESCO. So you will get a shorter contract period. So after the contract period, then all the saving will be yours. Okay, so this is the real example for a higher education institution in Selangor, Malaysia. So they retrofitted their building using EPC financing mechanism. So their bill before EPC implementation was 100,000 ringgit, for example, and then once they implemented the retrofit, their bill reduced about 20,000 ringgit. So their bill is now 80,000 ringgit per month. So from that 20,000 ringgit of saving, 80% will be paid to the ESCO, the investing party, and 20% will be theirs. And then after the end of the contract period, 100% or 20,000 ringgit per month of saving will be belong to the premise owner. Okay, so this is the impact of EPC. Okay, as a disclaimer, this project is outside the Maryland project, because none of the local authorities carried out lighting retrofit using EPC concept. Why, I will explain later. So this one I import from other projects outside, beyond my Maryland project. So you can see the saving generated when they started retrofit in 2012. So the contract period is until 2019. So you can see the bill reduction. So they changed their water cooled package unit, as well as lighting, and also they installed remote monitoring system. So this project has been successfully completed. And this is also the data for the higher education institution. So they actually enjoy average annual energy saving about 21%. And then in terms of annual energy cost saving for government is about 10.99%. That is in terms of monetary. Okay, so the last outcome of the Maryland project, of course, we had capacity building. We trained the technical staff of the four local authorities on energy management as well as energy audit, and we also organized energy management awareness seminars for the staff. And lastly, we also assisted them in terms of capacity building for GGP and low carbon cities framework. We organized Maryland project workshop, and we invited all 145 local authorities on top of only the 4 pilot local authorities. We also had project publication. So later when you receive this slide, you can read through the link, and you can also view our full project video in the YouTube link later. We also published Government Green Procurement Guidelines 3.0, and we distributed the learning project materials from this project to all 145 local authorities in Malaysia. Okay, so now I want to focus on the lessons learned. Number one, most local authorities were not fully aware about the GDP, so that's why we implemented so many awareness programs to this project. And now we have started to receive inquiries from more local authorities after this project completion. And through the distribution of learning materials, that also contributed to the high number of inquiries we received from local authorities Malaysia, because now all local authorities want to embark GGP based on the success story of the 4 local authorities involved in this project. And the main challenge of procurement of lighting products with regard to this project, of course, as mentioned, also covered by the first speaker, is higher price compared to non-GGP products. So that's why life cycle costing is very important, and that is one of the elements that we included in our training to the local authorities. And the third challenges was the number of lighting products registered under our SIRIM eco-labeling scheme and our My Hijau or My Green Mark was very low. But after this project, we received a lot of new applications, especially for street lighting. So that is one of the major success of this project. And then number 4, most local authorities did not have sufficient data of street lights energy consumption. So when we approach them, they don't even know about their monthly energy consumption from their street lightings. So that's why we developed an online monitoring system called LC4 to help them with the monitoring. And number 5 is traditional self-financing is still the most popular financing mechanism because it is very simple and have simpler contracting and procurement procedure. And number 6 I already covered. Leasing is very good alternative financing mechanism because if you have limited budget and you prefer to accelerate the process of changing the conventional street lights to energy efficient and environmentally friendly street lights, so you can opt for leasing. So that means you don't have to make immediate upfront payments. I showed you the real case just now. Instead of you are able to only change about 200 plus lighting, with leasing you can change 1,200 lighting. Okay, and number 7 is the major challenge we faced during the project implementation in 2020. During that time, most lighting manufacturers preferred outright purchase compared to leasing or EPC because they had to have a faster cash flow during the pandemic. Okay, number 8, why EPC is not possible for lighting retrofit in Malaysia? Because street lighting in Malaysia is using a special tariff at 19 cents per kilowatt hour. That is a very low tariff compared to building energy tariff. So for building, the tariff is around 36 cents to 50 over cents. So this is very much cheaper. So when the tariff is very cheap, when you do the street lighting retrofit, then the payback period will be very long. So due to this problem, EPC is not attractive for street lighting retrofit, but it is still attractive for other major components in the building, for example, chillers, including indoor lighting, yeah, because indoor lighting is using the building tariff, but street lighting it is using a special tariff at 19 cents only. So that's why EPC is not doable in Malaysia for street lighting. Okay. And then we also face problem in conducting EPC for government buildings in Malaysia because in Malaysia, when the government entities want to do anything about procurement, they need to have they need to refer to EPC guidelines and also EPC contracts, which need to be approved by the Attorney General Chamber of Malaysia. So as of now, we have already finalized the EPC guidelines, can already be used by all government agencies, but the EPC contract has yet to be finalized. So as long as the EPC contract is not finalized, no government entity can conduct EPC unless they receive special approval by the government. So that's why EPC is quite challenging for government building in Malaysia as of now, but it is doable for the private sector. Okay, and number 10, LED lighting is a proven technology in terms of energy efficiency in luminous. I already covered just now and have shown you the difference between energy consumption and also the luminance. And also it also have higher lifespan. Okay, and then number 11, the decision making in procurement of energy efficient and environmentally street light should not solely depend on the payback period. Yeah, you have seen in Malaysia the payback period may be up to 20 years because the street lighting tariff is very low. But the local authorities should consider other factors such as to support economic activities, improve mobility of road users at night, as well as to improve safety and minimizing crime. As long as street lighting retrofit is concerned. And the most important factor is to embrace government leads by example principle and also to reduce greenhouse gases emission. Okay, and last but not least, we through this project we also found out that the awareness on energy management by the local authorities was still low. That's why we conducted capacity building and seminars related to energy management, and this is expected to improve along the journey of the local authorities in their low carbon cities framework project implementation. And also the government of Malaysia will gazette Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act anytime soon, hopefully by this year. So that's all for my sharing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hakal. I think it's very impressive, not seeing many figures that you presented to us to realize that how saving look like and how you monitor the saving. I think the most important for us when we talk about um, what you call the scientific based evidence, no? Because sometimes when we would like to convey the policy or maybe we want to talk with the policy maker that we would like to implement GBP, then we have to visualize them with some kind of the figure. And here very impressive, either the saving from the lighting system, indoor or street lighting, the lighting retrofit program, and also you brought us also to the different type of the financing model, no? Either self financing or maybe leasing, and also the energy contracting, a performance contracting, of course, that EPC can help us in terms of avoiding the high upfront cost, because at the end the ESCO, no, or energy service company, which I think that they are now uh, based in many countries, like in Thailand we also have the ESCO service that they are a group of the energy experts that can help us to evaluate or assess the potential measure and saving, no, well, for our making decision. And then they also can help us in maybe invest in the infrastructure. No need the government to invest first, but anyhow they have to have the a kind of the guarantee a saving, not together, because at the end the saving or the money from saving will be shared between either the government or between the government and also the ESCO company. Could be one tool, but I aware that EPC may not suitable for all kind of product or services. We have to look at case by case. But in Thailand, they also popular in terms of like building, in terms of like the energy, renewable energy, and also energy efficiency measures, something for the manufacturer, no? A big manufacturing or the big factory that they want to change the machine and it related to the energy, then the ESCO service would be also one option or one, yeah, potential. So thank you very much for Mr. Hakai, very impressive presentation, a lot of information, very useful for us and inspire us as well to further explore the EPC in any maybe some country would like to explore more possibility in their country, no? It would be one option. Now we come up arrive to the last session on the Q&A. I got Sarah. Could you please move to the maybe next question? I saw from the chat box that there are also two questions to Mr. Suboi, no, Fuji. So the first question to Mr. Suboi from Fuji that are there any upfront cost for this? Is the cost value based on the number of printer the organization want to use?
Okay. To answer your question, okay. This service basically requirement in terms of the system that will have some upfront cost, but in terms of the machine, there's none. Okay, and the cost varied based on the number of printers. Okay, the the cost is so basically the number of example print the same volume, then the cost will be the same. But then based on the printer model or based on how much you print, the click charge cost will be different. So yeah, that one, please contact your Fujifilm Business Innovation salesperson if possible, or you can contact me and I can connect to the each related person. Thank you.
And then I guess that the next question also would direct to you. In case the customer would like to change from buying a copy machine to using a copy as a service, do you also take in the old machine and give like some kind of discount, no, to the customer in order to like incentivize the customer?
Okay.
To have that kind of discount or maybe program, no, discount program.
It'll basically have. However, we don't buy back the machine that the customer is using now at this moment. Okay, and then because we don't sell the products, so the click charge cost will be of course higher than the current machine. But then if you compare with the total cost, I think it will be lower. Okay, and then some specific country like Thailand, we actually refurbish the machine. So some of the used machine we can offer with a cheaper price. So to answer your question, yeah, something like that.
Thank you very much.
If that answers your question.
Hope that is this clear answer for participant who asked the question. So go to the next question, Sarah. I guess that the next question.
One moment. We one more question for Mr. Haikal.
Yep, I saw it. So, yep. So from the lesson learned in Malaysia case, now the awareness programs for local authority look like this is a training, or maybe you have a campaign how to like educate.
Okay, thank you for the question. So in Malaysia, there are 14 states, and all states are divided into a few regions. So we normally conduct our seminars and trainings on GGP according to the regions. So for each regional training or seminar, local authorities from a few states will participate, and seminars and trainings will be comprising of two parts. One is the general understanding on GGP, and then the next one will be practical training. So we will request them to bring their current or existing contracting or procurement documentation. Then from there, we will brief and guide them to embed GGP criteria into the documentation. Yeah. So after that, once they have started in terms of implementation phase, so if they have any problem, we will offer our service to review their implementation as well as to become one of the technical expert to evaluate the tender. Yeah. So that's our approach.
Thank you very much, Ka. hope it clear, or if you want to have more detail, yeah, please feel free to ask. I also found one question remain. I'm not so sure, Sarah. I found one question from El KPP. See, yeah, asking Mr. Dr. Shen that if I want to know more in Taiwan, if the government has purchased eco-label products, can it be said that the government has implemented sustainable procurement? This question already been handled.
In Taiwan, yes, the target of our GPP is eco-labeled products. And we accept many different kinds of eco-label products, including energy saving, water saving, even some international labels like FSC and PFC. So we call it GPP, but in fact, of course, it covers some social and economic considerations. So I think it is SPP. We just use the older name as GPP. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I guess so, because from the presentation, I remember that you have various types of eco-labeling that you put also in your guideline, that the government shall procure the eco-label product. And of course, we still have like two terminology between, actually GPP is quite a kind of, not, I would not say that the old wording, but of course the new terminology like SPP also become more like often used among other countries, you know. I guess that there is no more question, but of course, if after this event, if you still have like any question, or would you like to have any information more, especially to any speaker, feel free to email us. We are very happy to support you in learning and moving things together. So now we arrive to the end of the event. So on behalf of organizer, of course, the GIZ, which financially supported by the German government, and our key speaker, like Ashley from Eco Institute, that stay with us. She will stay with us throughout the 7 dialogues, no, in order to provide us a basic understanding on each barrier. And also thank you for all speakers from Taiwan, from Philippines, from Fujifilm, and also Malaysia, that allocated your time, your preparation of the presentation, and also try to bring in your lesson learned, no? From your country and share with our partner country in 8 countries. I thought that some countries still very new for GPP implementation and also labeling. Some countries already advanced. But here I think that you can see, at least you can get some food for thought, that something might also suitable that you can bring back to your country and start implementation. Because later soon, either you start now or maybe you wait for 10 years, you have to start somewhere, because the environmental problem become more and more a global issue. And we still believe that GPP, SPP, and eco-labeling is one of the government tools, no, that can shape the consumption pattern and put the demand toward the clean product and services. Thank you for all participants and audience for your attention, and stay with us until the last minute. The all PowerPoint presentation also sharing in the chat box. You can download here. And I also would like to pursue your interest in the next barrier dialogue on walk the talk too, not making sustainable public procurement work. It will be on 20 September this year. Hope to see you all here. Lastly, would like to thank all the backup team, no? Sarah, Kun Yim, and also all coordinator in the country that coordinating with the participants, inviting them, and coordinating with them. Thank you for all your effort and we will move things together ค่ะ Thank you very much ค่ะ Bye bye
Thank you very much. Bye bye, Ka. Have a good rest of the day.